Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Red Wolf Roundtable here on ASU-TV. Now, I know this is, and the Red Wolf Roundtable is still in the shot, so let's reset.
Which camera am I looking at? Red? That one right there.
Two. There you go. All right,
and they will be facing a turn.
Welcome back to Red Wolf Roundtable here on ASU-TV. I'm Tristan Harlan. Joined with me today is not my good friend, my good compadre, my brother from another mother, Cooper the Juicebox Motor, because he's in Florida with Miss Courtney Banakis. Hope you guys are having a great spring break. But joining me today is sports editor for the Herald, William Livingston, and KASU audio editor, Carson Campbell. Guys, thank you for joining the show. How are you guys doing?
Yes, sir. I'm good.
Doing pretty good.
So as you guys know it, we are now in the Ides of March, and possibly the greatest month for college basketball fans all around is upon us, but we have a little bit of a different atmosphere this year than we have had in past years. Arkansas State was actually picked to play in the women's basketball NCAA tournament, and I believe we have a clip from the selection show where they got announced, so let's take a look at it real quick before we get carried away.
And they will be facing a tournament.
Yeah, so Arkansas State playing in their first ever NCAA tournament, and as we go over through the course of this show, you'll get to find out who they're playing and what we're thinking about of that matchup. But guys, how are you feeling for March and March Madness as a whole? Will, we'll start with you.
Well, I got to say I was surprised by the end of the Sun Belt Conference Championship. I went in, and to my shame, I did not expect us to win it. James Madison was 28-4. They were a juggernaut in the mid-major level of women's college basketball. And but I thought if any team could beat James Madison, we've got the best shot because they've never played us before. They don't know what they're going to expect, and we have a much different attack, much different defense than any team they've faced before. And I almost was right about James Madison too, because we came back from what, 17?
You believe so?
A 17-point comeback, beat them in overtime. We wore them down like I thought they would. It's the tempo that she's got. Yep. It kills these teams. That's why she's got only 3 losses. It's why the women's team's got 3 losses in the entire Sun Belt Conference. And so I feel like I was surprised more than anything. It was a happy surprise. I feel.
Carson, what about you?
I love March, man. This is my favorite time of the month. It's windy right now. It's beautiful outside. Like Will said, the girls, man, they came in 13th, I think, in preseason rankings. Nobody believed in them. JMU, undefeated in Sun Belt. Who else? They didn't play us, though. And they played us. We beat them. Our system, 10 rotation, 5-5. Love it. We shoot a lot of threes. It's going to be a good time. I know matchup. Who knows? It's March. It's March, baby. That's all I got to say.
Right, and of course, we'll get to the matchup here in just a little bit, but I want to ask you guys, just kind of setting the scene a little bit, what's maybe some of your favorite memories from watching the March Madness tournament? Again, we'll start with you, Carson. We'll go to you, Will.
I don't know. Like, even yesterday, we were talking about this before. I know the women's hasn't necessarily started yet, but Alabama State and St. Francis yesterday, wow. 1 second shot on the clock. Beautiful basketball. It's just, there's so many memories. I remember watching Villanova, North Carolina, that's a classic shot. It's a beautiful time, beautiful month. Can't wait.
There's so many. I'm a huge sucker for the mid-majors, and these past few years have been excellent basketball from a mid-major standpoint. It was 2023, I believe, that Florida Atlantic went to the Final Four, as well as San Diego State. That was some of the greatest basketball I've ever watched. You had Florida Atlantic, which was just deadly from three, going all the way to the Final Four with Dusty May and John L. Davis. And then you had San Diego State, which was easily one of the physically strongest teams I've ever witnessed in March Madness. Those guys did not skip a day at the gym, and they were bodying folks out the whole time. It's a shame that they had to play each other in the Final Four, but I wish we'd seen both of those teams in the championship, because that was a true championship. But I also got to bring up St. Peter's as a 15 seed going on an Elite Eight run with Doug Eddert, and from the middle of Trenton, New Jersey. Never heard of the school before they came in, and they just started laying waste to Purdue and Kentucky and teams that they had no business on paper doing that against, from the Metro Atlantic.
Right.
They're from middle of nowhere, and so just one of the greatest basketball runs I've ever witnessed.
Right, and of course, me growing up in the Memphis area, that's kind of a prominent basketball town with, the Grizzlies and the NBA and the Tigers playing in the FedEx Forum, the Pyramid, the Mid-South Coliseum. But I still go back to 2008, March Madness. I think it was the national championship, Memphis versus Kansas. Kansas had a young guard upcoming by the name of Mario Chalmers, and he hits a three over Derrick Rose and another guy to go into overtime, and then Kansas ended up winning the national championship. And then, of course, you got the runs that you guys talked about. But, hey, even guys like Cardiac Kemba Walker, who still had a successful career in the NBA, not one that I'm sure he dreamed of winning championships and stuff like that, because he got drafted to the Charlotte Bobcats. Yeah, well, that's not a conversation we're going to have today. Just know it's the Bobcats. But yeah, I got to ask guys, and this is kind of going into the next portion of the segment before we go to break, is that, just talking about Arkansas State basketball for a second. I mean, of course, we'll start with the men since they didn't make the NCAA tournament. But what was your guys' reactions to the seasons? Did they exceed your expectations? Did they fail to meet it? What was your guys' thoughts, Will?
They were exceeding my expectations right up until, I think, the Marshall game, about mid-season, mid-conference play. I feel like that game sort of broke us as a team. Marshall schooled us in the paint, and that was one of the areas that we didn't feel like we had any worries from. We were a little small in terms of our team, but I mean, Isaiah Nelson and Rashad Marshall were locking it down in the paint. You had Kobe Julian, who was very effective at drawing the fouls, at driving in the paint, and it just stopped clicking after that Marshall game, and we started dropping conference games like crazy. What helped was we had those Louisiana games at the back half of the season, and I mean, this season Louisiana, they were scrubs this season, and they were just easy warm-up games for us, and it was able to get our confidence back up to where we could go on a run in the Sun Belt Conference Championship and make it to at least the final. Troy, to their credit, had a good team. I mean, Tayton Connerway he proved in our championship game that he was the Sun Belt Player of the Year, and I felt like our players were a little undervalued by the Sun Belt. I don't understand how Isaiah Nelson is third team All Sun Belt. If you've got a double like pretty much every game for like the past 10 games, I feel like that's higher than a third team. But I feel like our team was a little underrated, but at the end of the day, I do feel Troy proved that they were the better team. But last night, NIT. If we play like that every game of the NIT, we're winning an NIT because we were in lockstep. Those guys St. Louis did not know what to do with us. So, but I'm pleased with the outcome. It's still an improved outcome compared to last year where we were 17 losses. This is much improved, and so I'm fully confident for next season.
I'll add on to that NIT tournament. That's big for A-State. We haven't had an NIT tournament in a while. I think it's one of those things I've heard talk where people ask me, am I more upset if we win the NIT or if we went to first round in the March Madness? And I think they're both kind of similar at this point in the stage in Coach Bryan era. I would like to be in March, obviously. I think last year no one expected us to be there in March, and that was his first year. So I think this year it was a big step up, but I think people expected preseason number 1 in Sun Belt. I think people expected us to be good, and we were good. We made the championship. We lost, obviously. I think we got to figure out our offense. I know we led the Sun Belt in offense, but there was points after the Marshall game where we just kind of the offense couldn't find themselves, and I think we need to find a consistent offense. I think we have a powerful offense against teams like that, but teams that know how to play us, we weren't very good in the zone. Zone kind of broke us a lot. But I think if we can figure out the zone, our defense has to improve too. But like I said, NIT tournament, if we can win the NIT tournament, I'm happy, man, at A-State.
Right, and of course, I've had my talks about the A-State men's basketball team throughout the course of the season here on Red Wolf Roundtable, and of course, if you ask A-State Barstool about the NIT tournament, it's the not important tournament, which, I've been on record saying as a friendly joke, but it's kind of interesting how that happens. You say something, and then, you start to see it on Twitter, and it's like, okay, I know I didn't post this, but there's some kind of weird coincidence there.
Well, you got to remember that a lot of the fans here at A-State are new fans.
Yeah, they weren't here.
A lot of them were probably Razorbacks fans before they came to A-State, and let's just be honest about that. So the NIT, if you're a Razorbacks fan, you're used to going to the NCAA tournament. So NIT is sort of seen as a disappointment. Well, welcome to mid-major basketball.
Yeah.
The NIT is huge for mid-major basketball. That's sort of the bread and butter for a lot of these teams. I mean, Memphis has 2, I think, or 3
Something like
championships
that.
in the NIT. It's their thing. Nebraska has a whole NIT championship. They've never even won a game in the NCAA tournament. They're not even mid-major. But, I mean, they love the NIT. Any Nebraska fan you'll talk to will be like, man, I hope we go to the NIT. And it's a crazy thing. But the NIT is still a huge tournament, regardless of what some fans may think of it. And it's huge for us, too. We haven't been in 30 years. I mean, it's just huge.
Right, and just the NIT as a whole. I mean, of course, talking about the women's basketball team a little bit, they hosted Arkansas here and Mississippi State, where they knocked off both of them, went on to lose, and of course, they played a lot of great talent. They ended up going to the WNBA in that year's draft. But, real quick before I want to go to break, I do want to say again, thank you guys for coming on, and that, the men's basketball team, while yes, they had their struggles, I'm sure they're going to find their stride going into next season with the momentum. And hey, North Texas ends up losing. Arkansas State could host another NIT game.
Right.
So, there's still room on the table for Arkansas State to host another game. But we're going to go to a short break. When we come back, we're going to dive into the Women's March Madness NCAA Tournament right here on Red Wolf Roundtable. Stick around.
I think one of the things I learned at Arkansas State was life is 10% of what happens to you, 90% of how you respond to it, and that's just something that I live by.
A-State is home, and they're going to treat you like you're a part of the family.
ASU-TV, covering all your favorite sports. From Red Wolf Roundtable to West Side football and more, ASU-TV has you covered. Tune in now to ASU-TV for news and coverage on these sports and more.
And welcome back to Red Wolf Roundtable here on ASU-TV. Now it's time to dive into the women's half of the March Madness NCAA tournament bracket. Tristan Harlan here with Carson Campbell and Will Livingston. But looking at Region 1, there's a lot of heavy hitters in that region. I mean, of course, you got teams like UCLA, Baylor, the dark horse Grand Canyon in Region 1. And, I don't know about you guys, but my sleeper pick in this region is Grand Canyon. Of course, the big favorite, UCLA, LSU is not far behind that with Kim Mulkey. But what are you guys looking at with this bracket?
Well, like you said, Tristan, Grand Canyon is easily the one that stands out. They're 32-2. Now, I'm going to acknowledge this. They are 32-2 in a pretty weak conference. They're in the WAC. Their only losses, I don't know the first one, but the second one is to Oregon. Oregon was top 25, and they lost by a decent bit. It seems like this might be a team that is sort of profiting off of some weaker teams. I do have them winning their first round game against Baylor, though. Baylor seems weak. Grand Canyon, frankly, is just hot. You've got guards like Alyssa Durazo-Frescas, who's averaging near 15 points a game, and you've got sort of a dynamic duo forming with Trinity San Antonio, also 15.7 points a game, and you've also got 5.5 rebounds a game. Again, team's just hot. You never discount when they're hot. They're on a double-digit win streak. I would pick them ultimately.
I have UCLA in this region. I think NC State's they're in there too. In that conversation. Richmond obviously could be an upset there, but Ole Miss, Baylor. I think UCLA takes this one. I mean, personally, I don't think there's going to be. I think it's going to be pretty chalky in this region. So I'm going to take UCLA in this region.
Right.
I would like to point out I have UCLA taking this region. I just have Grand Canyon being the only upset in this region.
Really?
Right, and that's kind of where I was going similar. I mean, of course, in the Baton Rouge side of things, you've got Florida State taking on George Mason, then LSU and San Diego State, and then Baylor and Grand Canyon playing Waco, and Ole Miss and Ball State also there. But I think my biggest takeaway from this region, this side of the bracket, is that, yeah, everybody expects UCLA to win and run away with it because they are, I do believe, the overall best team in the tournament.
They're on the number one seed.
But I just think from a grand scheme of things of, upset alert, I think Grand Canyon's got a lot to prove. I mean, of course, there's been rumors with their head coach, Coach Miller, taking the Arkansas job, possible other Arkansas jobs. Or not possible other Arkansas jobs, possible other SEC jobs. But, I mean, hey, there's a lot of rumors that a lot of people think that Destiny Rogers is going to take the Arkansas job because Mike Neighbors stepped down. But This isn't an Arkansas-oriented show. I hope they don't hire any coach and the entire program goes under. But that's just me being a D1 hater. But, I definitely think you look at it. I think, of course, as we talked about Grand Canyon, but another dark horse I think we could expect to see kind of come out of that rally North Carolina side is Harvard. I mean, they're 24-4, but the Ivy League schools, they don't play when it comes to March Madness. I mean, I can remember a lot of Ivy Leagues playing very well. Yeah,
Harvard being the only 16 seed to ever win one.
Yeah,
they've got experience in this before, and again, we know men's and women's Ivy League is dangerous in basketball. They know how to hoop. You got 3 teams from the Ivy League going to the women's March Madness, and these are 3 really good teams too. And Harvard is the best one because they don't have to play in a play-in. So this is a dangerous team. Michigan State better be watching now. I do have Michigan State winning this because Michigan State has proven themselves against Ivy League teams. They've dominated them. So I've got Michigan State winning it, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was a close game, and maybe Harvard does pull it out.
Right. So real quick before we switch regions, I just want to recap. Who's your winner out of Region 1?
UCLA.
I got UCLA as well.
Okay, I'm gonna go. Honestly, you know what? I'll take the dark horse just for sake of TV entertainment.
Yeah.
I'm taking Grand Canyon.
Okay.
But actually, no, I'll take Grand Canyon or LSU. I'll throw my other
LSU.
favorite team in there just as a selfless plug.
Jim Mulkey's got the experience.
Yeah, we love Coach Mulkey. Well, looking at Region 2 now, I mean, of course, another region with a lot of heavy hitters. Of course, the number 1 seed, or not Oregon, I was looking at a different team, but South Carolina, Dawn Staley, arguably the greatest coach in women's basketball history, if not one of them. Of course, other schools that have looked at possibly getting Dawn Staley, they weren't able to. She's been at South Carolina for a hot minute now. What do you guys think about this region?
I don't know if you remember, but there was serious talk that Dawn Staley was going to get a coaching role in the men's division.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember that.
And I was behind it because that she's just a good coach, and that's all there is to it. I think she's a Final Four bid easily. I think she's been there before. She's got plenty of experience. Experience matters in this league. However, I also have some upsets in this region as well, and my biggest one I've got is the Green Bay Phoenix at I believe they're the 12 seed. They play Alabama first round, and the reason I picked this is because, and I've got it written down in my notes, I've only got one note. Alabama is suspect. Alabama is not winning the games healthily. They're way too high on this because they've been dropping games to mid-majors. They've been dropping games that they shouldn't be dropping. They've been winning them close. Green Bay is a solid program. Green Bay has won these games before. Green Bay has gone deep in this tournament before. This is a good Green Bay team. I believe this Green Bay team is 29-5. And again, Alabama is suspect. I don't trust Alabama in this, and they haven't shown any reason for me to trust them this season. They play in the SEC. I know they play tough teams, but I don't trust them.
I just want to point out Duke here. I think Duke is very underrated in this tournament. I know they're a 2 seed, but they're ACC champs, I believe, and they beat Notre Dame twice. And, shameless plug, Notre Dame. But Duke, watch out for Duke here. I think I have them in the Elite 8. Obviously, they have to get through South Carolina. South Carolina is the mecca of women's basketball. Everybody knows that. Yeah. But watch out for Duke. I think South Carolina this year is a little bit weaker than previous years. I'll say that. Like you said, UCLA is the #1 overall seed. Usually it's South Carolina right off the bat. They're not. So I like Duke here, but I still got South Carolina coming out of this region.
Right. So, Will, I want to point out how you raised Green Bay over Alabama, and I'll raise you one even better. Give me Norfolk State over Maryland.
Really?
Got the better record. I think they're way underseeded to where they are. Give me the second round of Green Bay versus Norfolk State.
Cinema.
Yeah.
That would be absolute cinema.
As Kate
Absolute
Marsh likes to send us in our group chats on occasion. But, and again, looking at this side of the region, of course, you never want to count out South Carolina. I mean, I don't think South Carolina has lost a game in the NCAA tournament that wasn't against an SEC opponent.
Yes.
When they lost the championship to LSU. And I believe, I don't remember, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Iowa may have beat them. I don't remember if they beat Iowa or Iowa.
I think
Iowa
South
beat
Carolina
them.
beat them.
Okay, so
last year they were undefeated.
My memory is getting a little fuzzy right there. But again, you're looking at it. We talked about some possible upsets, some possible mid-majors moving on to the second round. But I'm not really sold on Duke. If you want me to be honest, I mean they're playing a 27-6 team. I was kind of hoping you were going to bring up Duke because I know you're kind of a lot of big ACC, Big Ten area of sports, being a Notre Dame fan or anything. But of course, when you think Duke, you think men's basketball. You think the Cooper Flags, the Zion Williamsons. Their intense rivalry with North Carolina over the years. Their many runs in the tournament with Coach K and stuff like that. But when it comes to women's basketball, I'm not sold on them going past the second round if they even make it out of the first round. Now, what I will say is this. If they do make it to the second round, they're going to play Oregon. I don't think Vanderbilt's going to get out of the first round. Vanderbilt is a notorious school for only being good at one thing. Actually, 2 things, academics and baseball. And that's the only 2 reasons why they're not in the Sun Belt right now. But I just think overall, looking at this region, Duke's not a very heavily favorite, and Maryland and Alabama are the 2, I guess you can call them G5 or Power 5 schools that are going to be on upset alert really, really fast. But again, overview of this region, who's your winners?
My winner for this region is South Carolina. I do have to disagree with you about Vanderbilt, though.
Okay.
I have Vanderbilt going on a run all the way to the Sweet 16. And the reason is, normally most years I would agree Vanderbilt is a glorified Sun Belt school. The academics is what they got, and that's what keeps them in the SEC. But there's something in the water this year in Nashville. Football, we look at football. Football was hot. They have a potential Heisman winner next year at their quarterback. And we look at baseball. Of course, they're a powerhouse in baseball. But when we look at basketball, for the same, almost similar reasons I don't pick Alabama. In women's basketball, I hate the SEC, but it actually means more in the SEC for women's basketball. We're talking about the last 5 championships, 4 of them have been SEC. I believe that's right. LSU had it, and then you got South Carolina, and then you got Mississippi State. Yeah. And so you got those schools. I'm not saying Vandy's going to win this division. South Carolina's going to win it. But I've got Vandy going on a run, beating Oregon, beating Duke, finally losing to West Virginia.
Right. Well, I mean, and to add to that credit about the SEC, I mean, of course, my goat when it comes to women's basketball coach is Pat Summitt, being the head coach of the Tennessee Volunteers. Arguably revolutionized the game of college basketball for the women. Of course, had Candace Parker at Tennessee before she became an icon of the WNBA. But I just think looking at the whole, of course, you make the joke about the Sun Belt or not the Sun Belt, but the SEC, and as I like to call it, the corporate conference, because
Right,
that's what they feel like they are. But overall, I think South Carolina is pretty easily going to win this region.
At the end of the day, South Carolina is your winner.
Right.
Don Staley is just at a different level than other basketball coaches.
Watch out for Duke. That's all I'm saying. Watch out for Duke.
And maybe right.
So looking at Region 3 now, of course, again, another division that could go any sort of way. Of course, I already know who my winner in this side of the bracket is going to be, and I don't think it's one that you're expecting, so I want to hear what you guys have to say about this one.
Let me just say, this is Notre Dame, right? You got go Irish. But watch out for TCU, too. Watch out for TCU. Hey, they Big 12 champs. That's a good conference in basketball, men's and women's. You also got Illinois, Creighton, Tennessee. There's some dogs in this. Obviously, you got the number 1, Texas. And let me just say, I don't believe in Texas here. I know they're the 1 seed, horns down. I don't believe in Texas here. Notre Dame beat them. I'm pretty sure Duke also beat them. I'm not sold on Texas. So there's some good games in this. Notre Dame, Michigan, possibly in the second round rivalry there. I love this region.
I have TCU winning this region. I'm pretty high on Haley Van Lith and that team. I saw her play at LSU, and she's playing even better now at TCU. I don't have any upsets in this region. I think everybody here is at a good level. I think the only thing that comes close to an upset really is Creighton over Illinois, and that's not really an upset. That's 8-9. I mean, usually the 9 seed wins that anyway. So when you got something like that, I am not terribly high on Texas. I guess you could say TCU winning over Texas would be an upset, but I'm just not as high on Texas like Carson said. I'm just not high on Texas.
Right. So, I mean, I'm looking at it, and again, the team I was going to say was going to win was going to be TCU. I was hoping you guys was going to overlook them just because of the experience I've seen with HVL at LSU. But
they're 31-3 in the Big 12. I
She's
can't
cooking
overlook
too.
that.
She's having a great season.
Dude, she's top 5 in the entire country right now, and it's not 3, 4, or 5. It's 2. But I just think looking at this region as a whole, I think the number 1 upset I'm going to predict right here on the show is that Princeton's going to beat Iowa State and they're going to beat Michigan. I think Princeton's going to upset Michigan. Of course, they won their national championship in football. It's not going to be the same for women's basketball.
Right.
Get them out of here. Michigan's just a one-dimensional team. But of course, then you got Ohio State, Montana State. Ohio State was a team that I was kind of torn about. I didn't know if I thought they were going to make it out of this region or if they were going to be a team that was going to go maybe 1 or 2 rounds and get knocked out. But looking at this, the way it is set up, they would move on to face the winner of Tennessee, South Florida. Tennessee's going to beat South Florida. They're going to beat Ohio State. And then Texas, they'd play the winner of Creighton and Illinois. I don't think High Point or William & Mary is going to upset Texas. So, again, I think Texas is going to get upset maybe 3rd round to the winner of the Tennessee-Ohio State matchup. But, I mean, overall, TCU, I mean, you can't say enough about them. Right. TCU, they've been dominant all year. It seems like Haley Van Lith has found her breath of fresh air at Texas Christian. I forgot where they play at.
Dallas.
My brain just went, again, foggy. It's been a long week, ladies and gentlemen. Spring break is just around the corner. My brain's already in Miami. But I just think, for the most part, you're looking at it, and you can't sit here and tell me anybody else outside of this, outside of maybe Tennessee, is going to come out of this region except TCU.
Yeah, I think the championship for this region goes through Texas, and it's going to go through TCU.
Right.
So.
Watch out for the Irish. Watch out.
All right, buddy. All right,
Number
buddy.
1 at one point in the season.
They were.
Yeah,
They've got
they were.
championship experience. I wouldn't rule them out, but I just think TCU is just way too high right now.
Well, they've got some experience, but don't let them play when it matters most. So they'll crumble under pressure. But again, all fun and games here on Red Wolf Roundtable. Again, thank you guys so much for joining us, joining me here. I say joining us because I'm used to Cooper being here. I'm not the same without my pal, my right-hand man here without me. But moving forward to the last region of the tournament, possibly the most important region, in my opinion. You're looking at it now, and you're thinking, okay, what makes this region so important? And you're looking at it, and you see it right there at the bottom of your screen. Number 2, UConn taking on a 15 seed Arkansas State on the 22nd at 1 p.m. on ABC. The 21-10 Arkansas State Fighting Red Wolves are taking on the 31-3 UConn Huskies and the number 1 draft pick in the WNBA draft in Paige Beckers. But guys, what do you think about this region? Talk to me.
Y'all are about to hear some very hot takes.
Oh,
from
God.
me.
Oh, goodness.
So,
This ain't the Herald Twitter before you start.
first of all, I'm not even going to start with Arkansas State. I'm actually going to start with Murray State versus Iowa. Murray State's winning that. Murray State has the number 1 offense in the country. Murray State is hot. And if you look at Iowa's defense, they're not even top like 150. They're not that good. This is not Caitlin Clark's team anymore.
Okay.
This team is this is Iowa. This is a different Iowa. This is a lackluster Iowa, middle of the Big Ten Iowa. Murray State is playing at an unbelievable rate right now. We're talking 87.5 points a game. And I know they play in the Ohio Valley. I know it's mid-major for women's basketball. It's just at a lower level than most leagues. But Murray State is scoring an unbelievable amount of points. I've got Murray State winning that. I've also got Liberty winning their game over Kentucky, and for very similar reasons as I've got that. They're better by a healthy margin from 3. They've got 37% from 3. They're shooting more than a third correctly. And then they're also much more efficient in the paint in points and rebounds from the paint. They're a better team than Kentucky on paper. Now, this is all on paper, of course. We're not regarding the fact that Kentucky plays in the SEC. It just means more, that kind of thing. But Liberty still is playing very well out of Conference USA. There's some good teams in Conference USA. I think they can very easily get this. And we've also got, I'm saving the best for last, because I've also got San Diego State over Oklahoma State. I don't think this is an upset at all. San Diego State spent much of the year in the AP Top 25. They're 16-0 in Summit League. They're, again, ranked for much of the season. Top 50 offense, and they're on a 19-game winning streak. We never pick against the hot team. The hot team is always the team to pick, and San Diego State is very hot. And then finally, the hottest take of all. I have Arkansas State going to the Sweet 16.
Sweet 16.
Sweet 16
Wow.
run. Because again, if San Diego State is going to the second round, they will be playing Arkansas State
Okay.
if Arkansas State wins this.
I see the
So, what I've got here, tips for the game. First off, I originally said you got to lock up Beckers. The fact is you're not going to lock up Beckers. She's the number 1 pick in the WNBA draft for a reason, or at least projected anyway. The trick is to lock up the rest of the team. The thing is, we know Destiny Rogers' style of play. She's, 5 men out, 5 men in, substitute the whole, 5 women, my bad. Substitute the whole team out. Everybody's on the same level. Everybody's fresh. The energy keeps going, keeps high, whereas UConn's going to be lowering their energy every time. So the trick is to lock up the rest of them. And what I've noticed, what I've highlighted is UConn forward Sarah Strong. She leads in rebounds with 8.4 per game, and she's a defensive menace, leads in steals, leads in blocks, the whole thing. She's 6'2". She's a huge forward. We don't have anybody that's that tall other than Nisa Sam Grant. So Nisa Sam Grant and maybe Winter Rogers are going to have to work together on this, not foul, and lock up Strong, lock up these teams. Because again, Beckers is going to go off. Beckers is high in assists, extremely high in points. She actually doesn't lead the team in points as far as I'm aware, which is insane for UConn, but she leads by a wide margin in assists. So she's going to go off. She scores double digits every game. Even in their losses, they haven't been able to lock her up, but they've been able to lock up the rest of the team. So I think that if you focus on the rest of the team, Beckers has to play by herself, and you can squeak out an overtime win, because I'm not going to say we're going to win outright. We will win overtime. But when we play South Dakota State, wrong SDSU, I think we can win that. That's a team that I feel like the first game will be, they'll be riding that high, but you got to actually keep that going. And I think Arkansas State has the mentality, has it to go to that level. However, they would have to play Oklahoma after that round, as I've projected, and I just don't think we can beat Oklahoma, unfortunately. They have a top 5 offense for a reason. So.
I like that, Will. Unlike Will over here, I'm all chalk in this region. Other than maybe Murray State, I'm still kind of iffy about Murray State.
Right.
Like you said, I really like Murray State here, but it's a tough matchup. It's not Caitlin Clark's team. It's still Iowa, let's be real. They have some dogs on that team. Obviously, USC. USC's not getting talked a lot about in this region. I like USC here.
I've got USC winning this.
Juju, and you think you got USC?
Mm-hmm.
UConn, USC.
go.
I'm not. I love the Red Wolves. Let me just say, I'm very proud of the women's team. I love them. I think it's huge that they even made the tournament. First of all, I think that's huge for the program, huge for the school. I love that team. I think the spread is what? It's 45?
44.
Let me just say, that's a little disrespectful. It's a little disrespectful to me. 45 points is a lot of points, okay? I think we cover that, but I think UConn has 3 lottery picks. That's a lot of talent on that team. And I think it's a big accomplishment that we got there. But I'm going to take UConn here. I just think I'm being realistic. I think UConn wins it all. But I hope A-State wins. I do. Bracket for my bracket personally, I got UConn.
Right, and look, here's the thing. Arkansas State, they've had their backs against the wall all year. I mean, and, pressure makes diamonds, and God doesn't give the strongest test to his strongest soldiers. So, I'm not going to sit here and say Arkansas State's going to mop the floor with UConn. I'm not going to say Shanae Brown's going to go out there and drop 60 and, shoot every 3 and make them, or Winter Rogers is going to have the quadruple double of a lifetime, or, just some outrageous thing that a lot of A-State media people like to put on Twitter.
Right.
But I think looking at this sort of region, you got 2 things here. You got your blue bloods and you got your rambunctious bunch. Of course, USC, they're going to beat Greensboro. Mississippi State, they're probably going to drop it to Cal. I mean, I don't know. I'm on the iffy there. I mean, of course, Mississippi State being a former champion. I don't know. I think maybe California has enough to edge them out here this year. Fairfield, I think they beat Kansas State. I mean, I'm just going to come out and say it. I think they beat the Wildcats. Liberty. I think they're going to beat the Wildcats. Murray State, again, just like Will said, I'm taking them over Iowa. But here's my upset, okay? And it's not Arkansas State over UConn, because that, to me, really isn't an upset. It's just, the A-State guy's going to pick A-State to win. My sleeper here is Florida Gulf Coast University over the Sooners.
Really?
30-3 versus 25-7. Now, look, I get it. Their 30-3 is different from an SEC 30-3. Of
course.
Or TCU's 30-3, for example. But again, we're in March. This time, 5 years ago, the entire world was shutting down, and we went into a state of hibernation for a year or so. So crazier things have happened in this country. I mean, and I'm not going to get into it, but crazier things have happened. Give me Florida Gulf Coast University. I love it, I like it, and I want some more of it.
Crazy
I
cool.
want the upset in March, and I want it in this matchup here. Now, South Dakota State versus Oklahoma State. Again, I'm going to follow your kind of trend you set. I like them over Oklahoma State. And then, of course, Lakers in 5. Don't matter what Shannon Sharp says. I want Arkansas State in 5, meaning 4 quarters in overtime, because I want to see the Red Wolves shock the world and give UConn the first round, see you later, stinky, and shut the door on them.
What would that mean for A-State if they do get this win?
Would be the first 15 seed to win a
It
game.
would be, just not NCAA record speaking, but it'd be the first NCAA tournament win for a basketball program in Arkansas State. Because when A-State men's made it in 99, they lost first round to Utah.
I mean, you know how huge that would be for the school?
Well, it'd be huge for the school, but here's another storyline for you. When Destiny Rogers was hired all them years ago, it wasn't by Jeff Purinton, it was by Tom Bowen before he stepped down. And of course, now you bring in Brian Hodson, you bring in Butch Jones, you bring in Sujay Lama, you bring in all these other coaches that have yet to win the Sun Belt. And who else would it be but Destiny Rogers, the coach that a lot of people said wasn't going to make it past year 2, and when Izzy Higginbottom left, said that she was going to be right behind her. So, I mean, and I know names of people that was saying Destiny Rogers wasn't going to be nothing at Arkansas State University. One that, works in athletics that probably shouldn't have an opinion on those kinds of matters. But what I will say is this, is that Destiny Rogers should have won Sun Belt Coach of the Year. I understand why she didn't.
Yeah.
I understand 100% why she didn't. Of course, if you got a guy who went undefeated in conference, went undefeated in the regular season period, you give that to you give that Coach of the Year award to them no matter what. I mean, I don't care what your other story is.
Right.
But and I'm going to use a WWE term here for all my wrestling nerds out there, but Arkansas State, they're going to finish the story, and they're going to beat the number 1 projected pick in Paige Buckers, whatever her last name is. And they're going to go on. They're going to play they're going to play spoiler to a lot of teams. And I'm not going to say they're going to win the national championship. I'm not that outrageous. But I will say that if they find a way to beat UConn, it's going to put a lot of teams on watch of, okay, here we go. The Sun Belt is a conference to reckon with. And hey, not only would it be good for the school, but just look at the conference for the whole, because if Arkansas State finds a way to beat the number 2 seed, the 31-3 UConn Huskies, the Sun Belt may get an extra bid in the conference, and not the conference tournament, but in the big dance next year.
Yeah.
So who's to say it doesn't happen? Now, again, UConn is hosting this, so it's going to be tough playing on the road, especially if you're not used to playing up there. Of course, they did drop some games to some big-time Power 5 opponents in Arkansas and Xavier. I don't think Xavier's Power 5, but they are
They're Big East.
Yeah, they're
Power
big.
5,
They're Big East. But I think you play those games with this team that finished the season. I think the decision's different and the record looks different. But there's a lot of players on this team that we spend hours and hours talking about. Well, I know you got something that you're wanting to say. So what you got on your mind?
Well, first off, if we won that game, we're a 2-bid league, I think.
Yeah.
And James Madison can finally stop complaining about being, the bridesmaid
First
instead of the
4
bride. But I think that should we win this and we're still not extending Coach Dez?
That's exactly. I'm glad you're bringing that up.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. She's the only coach.
Why
that
hasn't she got extended?
Exactly. I
think making it to March.
I understand why Coach Hodgson got extended as soon as he did. We had to keep him. I mean, he's revolutionizing the men's program. But Coach Dez is doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Right.
She's revolutionized the whole program. Again, the player we lost, Izzy Higginbottom, is top 5 in points per game. She's a top 5 player in women's college basketball. And she's going to be spending the tournament on the couch because Arkansas was awful. We're in the big dance. Nobody expected us to be here. We're 13th projected. And let's be very honest, and I love the players on our women's basketball team, but nobody had heard of any of these players, but half the schools that they were going to were not schools that we had heard of. I mean, I think Zai was playing on the bench at UTSA.
So that sounds weird. And then I think Mimi came from Old Dominion.
And Nay was at Canisius.
Yeah.
And which Canisius is, I mean, if you can tell me where Canisius is, you get a prize. So, again, there's all these players that we never heard of. Coach Dez brings them in, has them all working in a system that works for them. They're all getting like 15 minutes of playing time a game, which is huge for any player coming into college basketball. Playing time is huge. And all these players that nobody heard of, and then to go out and win a conference championship and go to the big dance. And again, 13th projected, we ended up first. And she's not extended. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I think this athletics department needs to get on it. I think they need to actually sign her and extend her before we actually lose her.
She's
to somebody.
gonna lose. Yeah,
She will leave.
Yeah.
And she will leave us for a higher conference.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't blame her one bit unless we extend her. We need to extend her.
Okay. Before we get too carried away with the whole Dez leaving thing.
Right.
I think if she does not get the contract here, she will pursue another school, but it's not going to be anywhere too far. I think it's going to be a school in the state of Arkansas because she's an Arkansas kid. I mean, she's told me on numerous occasions, and during interviews that she's an Arkansas kid. She wanted to be a part of the first team here at Arkansas State that went to the tournament. She's done that. You go and you shock the world. I mean, okay, look, and I'm going to try to tiptoe around this carefully because I don't want to say the wrong thing and upset the wrong person. But for Destiny Rogers, and I'm just going to set this into perspective for everybody for a second, for her to have this job fall in her lap after the last head coach quit at like 10:30 at night, then for the entire program to fall into her lap, for her to get her first win, I think she was the first African-American woman to get a win in the Sun Belt, or it was something formulated like that against Mississippi Valley State. I'm not exactly sure, so don't shoot me for getting the official thing wrong. But to go from that, after her first season as interim, the entire team except maybe 2 players went to the portal. Okay, then you come the next year, you get Izzy Higginbottom from Missouri. She has she doesn't have a bad season her first year. Her second season, she takes off. She leaves as long as 95% of the roster, with the exception of Anna Griffin, Kristen Rose, and Winter Rogers. Winter Rogers transferred to this program from West Virginia. Okay, the Rogers family as a whole is a basketball dynasty. I mean, the younger sister just won Gatorade Player of the Year. Her dad's a legendary coach in the state of Arkansas. that Coach Des, she played at UCA, played well in high school, and all that fun stuff. But you're looking at it, and the story is too sweet for the contract extension to not exist. Now, I'm sure, I don't know if they're working out a deal.
Yeah.
They already have a deal that they're,
waiting on.
They're waiting on because, of course, it's March, biggest game of your career. You don't want the distractions.
Yeah.
Right.
But if they win or lose, or they end up leaving the NCAA tournament, Final Four, Sweet 16, Elite Eight, whatever, wherever they finish, and there's no extension that follows, I don't know what the conversation's going to look like then, because, and again, I'm going to use this as an example. Butch Jones, he has not won 10 games at Arkansas State yet, and he has gotten, 2 or 3 contract extensions? Now, I get it was worked in the original deal, but why are we extending coaches that aren't doing as well?
Yeah.
I mean, the conversation needs to be had. Another conversation that needs to be had. I mean, this is the 50th year of women athletics here at Arkansas State University, and there's still not the support that the men have. I mean, why on earth are we pushing men's basketball here at Arkansas State and not pushing women's basketball? It took the women's team to get to the NCAA tournament and to win the Sun Belt Conference for them to have anything. And I say this because I went to the Selection Sunday show. You know how many people were there that I had not seen in the crowd in the entire regular season?
That's what I was telling Benjamin McDowell, because he was right there next to us. And I said, I didn't see half these people at these games.
Why are people getting on the bandwagon now? Now, I'm not sitting here and saying don't support the team if you hadn't supported from day one, because they need all the support they can get. But what I am saying is this. At Arkansas State, the only sports we really push is men's basketball and football. With the exception of baseball, every now and then, track and field when they're in the tournament, because they've been a blue blood for track and field. And, Arkansas as a state has,
Arkansas's track capital of the world. There's no way.
But why are we not pushing women's sports at Arkansas State University? I mean, women's bowling.
I'm doing a documentary
You're doing a documentary about it. But we're at a point in 2025 and in sports in general where people need to be watching women's sports more, and that's not an Arkansas State problem. That's an entire nation problem. There's no reason the WNBA could not be 50% more profitable. There's no reason why, bowling should not have some sort of professional league. I'm sure they do, but not to the landscape of what they do. I mean, women's sports has taken off so much in the past 20 years that there's no reason why more people should not be talking about it. There's no reason a number 1 overall draft pick in the WNBA should have to fear if she's going to even make the final roster, because they have to cut 75% of the roster. So I understand. I could be wrong about that. The numbers could be different, but from what I understand, just because you're pick number 1 does not ensure that you're going to be on the team. I mean, the Fever, they could cut Caitlin Clark tomorrow. Now, are they? No, of course not. But it is a legitimate cause of concern. I mean, Seattle, they have been one of the most storied programs in the WNBA. And nobody even knows Seattle still has a basketball team because they don't watch the WNBA. The greatest thing about the WNBA, in my opinion, is that they play in the summer and the spring, where the NBA is not being played. I mean, I think they play a little bit. Overlap a little bit. But there's no reason, if everybody pushes, we want spring sports, we want spring football, we want spring there. It's there. Yeah. It's literally there for your taking. So why are we still, as a society, not pushing and not elevating women's sports to where it needs to be?
I think part of the reason, and it started to rebound and started to go back towards being more in the spotlight, being more upfront and personal. But for so long, it's been perceived that women's basketball in specific was just a lower level of basketball. Instead of, I think the more correct approach needs to be more a different version of basketball.
Exactly.
Because I'm not watching a women's basketball game to watch a slam dunk. I mean, Brittany Griner is the only women's basketball player I know of that can actually dunk a ball. But I'm not watching to watch a slam dunk. I'm watching to watch some excellent three-point shooting. I'm watching to watch some good fundamental basketball. It's just good basketball. And so when we're watching that, I think we're approaching it in the wrong. Some people are approaching in the wrong sort of sense, because again, Caitlin Clark is not. We compare Caitlin Clark to. I've seen people compare her to Michael Jordan, and I don't compare her in the sense that she can make all these high-flying dunks, things like that. I compare her more in the sense of she's playing the game in the way that women's basketball needs to follow, and sort of shoot first, good clean passes, good assists, things like that. Just good fundamental basketball played at an extremely high level that you don't see in the men's basketball because there are all these razzle-dazzle, flashy plays that are high error sometimes, whereas women's basketball needs to be played with low error, things like that. And the good teams are doing that. You see that in South Carolina. You see that in Iowa last year. You see that in LSU. It just low error, make your points where you can, that kind of thing. But I think it's starting to rebound. You know, again, we know Caitlin Clark now. We know Juju Watkins. Juju Watkins is one of the best players in the country right now. I'd argue she's right up there with Beckers in terms of her skill. I've got USC winning the whole tournament. So you got Juju Watkins. You got, of course, Paige Beckers. You've got all these great players, Haley Van Lith. You got all these great players that are coming out of college basketball right now and taking over the WNBA. And it's very good for the WNBA to have these big star names that are coming in. We saw it with men's basketball 50 years ago in the 70s. You got all these big stars, because I mean, before that you had a couple guys in New York or Boston that were just running the whole league. You had LA with Jerry West sometimes, and that was back in the old days. But once the 70s start rolling around and the 80s start rolling around, you start getting guys like Wilt, you start getting guys like Bird, Magic, you start getting guys like Dr. J, you start getting guys like that, big stars, big names, everybody knows them. They're starting to make actual money instead of having to work these second jobs like the old NBA players used to have to work. And so we're starting to see that with women's basketball, where all these players are starting to get name recognition. Everybody knows Caitlin Clark. Everybody knows Angel Reese. Before that, the only player everybody knew was like what, Deanna Taurasi, like her, and you got
the WNBA as a whole.
The WNBA as a whole. You had
Bird,
her, you had Sue Bird, and you had Brittany Griner. You had some big players, but again, how much recognition were they pulling? I would be willing to bet before her arrest in Russia, Brittany Griner, outside of the WNBA, was probably not the most well-known player until that incident. And that's not good. That's not good for women's basketball. And Brittany Griner's a great player, and I don't want to take that away from her at all. But again, when we start to get more recognized for your plays, for your skill on the court, and I think that started, and we're starting to see that in women's basketball, especially at the professional league. Right. But it's going to be slow going. It's going to take a while. I'd say probably a decade. But we're getting there. We're getting there. And softball, again, when we look at women's sports, softball regularly outpaces college World Series, college baseball as a whole, but there's no professional league. We're getting there. We're going to be there at one point. Oklahoma is a huge softball state.
Yeah.
They love their softball.
Well, I don't mean to cut you off, but we do got to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about the men's tournament, and then, that'll be the last segment of the show. So stick around. It's been a longer episode of Red Wolf Roundtable, but we've had some great conversation. Stick around. We'll be right back after this.
Here to deliver the latest news on A-State sports, ranging from football, basketball, baseball, and more.
I'm your host, Tristan Harlan, alongside your other host, Cooper Melder.
Red Wolf Roundtable is your local sports source.
Tune in to Red Wolf Roundtable to get your fix on sports talk and news.
Students should watch ASU-TV just to see the creativity that a college student can get. The creativity that some of these students have is truly amazing. Getting that experience can really just take you further, and I feel like our program does that for a lot of students.
ASU-TV News, your local source for news, weather, A-State events, and more. Tune in to ASU-TV News now.
And welcome back to Red Wolf Roundtable for the final segment of today's show. Tristan Harlan here with Carson Campbell and Will Livingston. Now it's time to shift focus to the men's March Madness NCAA tournament bracket. And guys, looking at the first region of this bracket, of course, it's just going to be us rambling about it because I did not make graphics. Sorry. But looking at, of course, the first region with Auburn facing Alabama State. I mean, what are you guys seeing about about this side of the bracket? Who are maybe some upsets, and who are you guys looking at to win this side?
Well, first off, I don't have Auburn losing to Alabama State, although they played a great game in the first four, all-time classic. But I do have quite a few upsets in this one. Most notable being UCSD. And I don't know if this is really an upset, because UCSD is one of those teams that is excellent at forcing turnovers. They're one of the best in the country at forcing turnovers, one of the best in the country at getting a three. They pulled a great matchup. They're playing Michigan. They're playing Dusty May's Michigan. However, this Michigan is incredibly sloppy on the turnover. They're one of the worst in the country at giving up turnovers. I think they're under 1 on their assist to turnover ratio, and UCSD is way higher on that turnover ratio. So I've got UCSD winning that somewhat handily, actually. I think UCSD is the team of the tournament, and it's a team to watch out for. But the very next bracket down, I've got Yale over Texas A&M, and the only reason for that is, well, there's two reasons really. One is we don't discount Yale ever in the men's tournament. We never discount that Ivy League winner, because that Ivy League winner knows how to hoop. They are excellent. They're excellent at basketball. There's always some shooters at the Ivy League. And second of all, Texas A&M is on an unbelievably cold streak right now. I do not trust Texas A&M. And Texas A&M is one of the few SEC schools that actually played a tough schedule. And so I find this a little surprising, but I'm going to pick Yale on this. After that, not too many upsets. I have UCSD making the Sweet 16 just on virtue of they play Yale in the second round, and I think they would beat Yale. But after that, I've got Auburn winning this side. Auburn really is that good this year.
Yeah.
They're incredibly high at scoring. Bruce Pearl knows how to win these games. Janai Baroum is one of the best players in the country, even if he's incredibly old. So it's just one of those things of, I think they're going to go as far as it takes. I think they beat Iowa State in the Elite Eight, but I do have Iowa State going to the Elite Eight. But Auburn would ultimately take the cake on this one.
I like Auburn. I think they have a lot of talent. I think they're old. I think they're experienced. I don't think they're getting past Creighton second round. I think Louisville-Creighton, huge matchup, probably the best round of 64 game that we're going to have. Honestly, Louisville-Creighton, that's going to be a huge game. A lot of talk on Louisville. They're a really good team, really good in the ACC this year. But who knows? Another thing, North Carolina. I know North Carolina, they were in that bubble talk. 1 in 10 in quad 1 wins.
Yes.
They weren't supposed to. Not good in quad 1. But I know y'all watched the game last night. They destroyed San Diego State. They looked great. I'm picking them over Ole Miss. I got them going to play Iowa State. I like Iowa State pick, but the thing about Iowa State here is they're injured, and I don't think they can carry that on past the third. Like, they're going to get past North Carolina, but then you got Michigan State. Michigan State is a good team. Tom Izzo, probably the best coach in March. Besides maybe Bill Self and some of those coaches, but I think Auburn loses second round. Obviously, not going to lose in first round of the 16 seed. But I got Creighton, Michigan State in Elite Eight, and I got Michigan State coming out of this region.
So, okay, here's where I'm going to make a lot of people kind of turn their heads at me like I'm stupid. So yes, Auburn over Alabama State. That's a no-brainer. I know if I wasn't going to pick that, Benjamin McDowell probably would have thrown something at my head being an Auburn fan. Louisville, Creighton, I'm going to go Louisville. And the only reason I'm going to go Louisville, outside of how dominant they've been and how great they've looked all year, got to give a quick shout-out to my boy Jake Williamson over there doing this thing in Louisville, working for their production people. So I have two upsets in this side. Again, UC San Diego, I want them over Michigan. I'm a residential D1 hater when it comes to the Michigan Wolverines, just because a lot of my family members also grew up Ohio State fans, but that's a story for another time. And I don't consider Yale over A&M an upset. I really don't, only because it's an Ivy League, and Ivy League people, they know how to hoop. They know how to do two things: build spaceships and play basketball.
That's right.
So, you're gonna see them compete.
Oh, and lacrosse.
Yeah, three things. We'll give you three things. North Carolina over Ole Miss. North Carolina's been a blue blood of college basketball the entire existence of the sport, and you'll never hear me ever cheering for the Ole Miss Rebels. So give me North Carolina. Now here's my upset. Here's my, I guess, big upset. Give me Lipscomb over Iowa State.
I like that.
That's
Give
a take.
me
I like it.
Lipscomb over Iowa State for 2 reasons. One, I've seen them play. I've watched some of their games, and that seems to be, outside of Auburn, the most well put together team in this side of the bracket. Also, quick shout out to Arkansas State alum Mickey Ryan. He works for the university. Some aspect did radio for the Tennessee Titans for a number of years, but he graduated from Arkansas State. We've had him on A-State Special where Easton John, former station manager, talked to him. I've talked to him. He's a great guy. Love conversating with him. Hopefully he can come back to campus soon, and get on the show, maybe talk some things before graduation. But I like Lipscomb. The ASUN conference is a quickly rising conference when it comes to basketball. Of course, you've seen the Central Arkansas of the world, but for this bracket right here, give me Lipscomb. Of course, Marquette over New Mexico. I think I picked Marquette in like 85% of all brackets that I've ever done, so I'm going to do the same here. And Bryant and Michigan State, well, the only thing is this isn't Bryant High School we're talking about. We're absolutely dominant Division I athletes at some sport. Give me the Spartans. But overall, escaping this side of the bracket is going to be the Auburn Tigers.
I agree.
So
I think the Lipscomb take is a good take, too, because
Yeah.
NCAA does favor them, actually.
And
for
Iowa
this
State
matchup.
is, again, injured. So
Right.
it is a good upset pick there.
Moving forward now, talking about the next side of the bracket, the number 1 Duke Blue Devils, the overall number 1 seed, they're going to be playing a winner of a play-in tournament. But guys, what do you see about this tournament? Who's maybe some upsets that you'd like to see? Who's maybe somebody you think is going to win that they should win? And overall, what's the take here?
I like Duke here. They're number 1 overall seed. Cooper Flagg obviously injured his left foot and sprained it in ankle in the last game. But it's still Duke. They have too much talent on that team. I do think that Baylor-Mississippi State matchup in the second round could be a little sneaky, 8-9. You never know. And I think Cooper has to be he has to play a good game. A seed here, tell me what y'all think about this, but BYU. I really like BYU in this side of the bracket. I actually have them going to my Elite Eight in this region. I think VCU, Wisconsin, those are some sneaky teams too. I think Wisconsin's one of the more underrated teams in this bracket. But other than that, I think BYU can make a big push here. BYU and Duke is who I have in the Elite Eight.
I agree. I have BYU in my Elite Eight and Duke playing them in the Elite Eight. I have Duke winning this. Not a whole lot of upsets here other than BYU. I think BYU beating Wisconsin in the second round would be a major upset, but I think that's something BYU is very capable of. Looking at them all season, they've got some of the highest prospects in the country, and they've got the number 1 prospect coming in next year. So BYU is going to be more threatening here soon. Another game I've got here is Alabama. Alabama will probably lose to BYU in the Sweet 16. That's what I have them losing to. I've got St. Mary's beating Vanderbilt because Vanderbilt are frauds in men's basketball. They play in the SEC, and the SEC are mostly frauds this year. But I've got St. Mary's and Bama in second round. Bama wins, but Bama has a cold night shooting against BYU because Bama is heavily reliant on the 3-ball. And if they have a cold night shooting, it's probably over for them. So I've got BYU winning that, but Duke will ultimately win it. Cooper Flagg's just that good. Yet Knipple in there. That's a good team. That's one of the best teams in the country.
Right. So again, you look at Duke, and I think the number 1 question is, what's the status of Cooper Flagg? Is he available for the first game in the round of 64? Are they going to hold him out to the round of 32? Maybe even the Elite Eight, Sweet 16, whatever. But I think Duke has too much star power and too much firepower to really lose in the first 2 rounds. Again, it's all going to be dependent on what Cooper Flagg's availability is and what the field looks like at the next round. But one thing I want to point out that neither of you guys mentioned, in the Baylor-Mississippi State matchup, Baylor has got a guy that a lot of A-State fans know all too well, and his name, Norchad Omier. Norchad Omier arguably is going to be one of the not higher picks in the NBA draft because we all know how the NBA draft works. I think Norchad Omier is probably going to be a great forward at the next level. I think Norchad Omier arguably will carry Baylor over Mississippi State.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I like Baylor over Mississippi State, so give me the Baylor Bears. And then Liberty, Oregon. Again, this is another matchup here where it almost feels like you can't pick a wrong team in this matchup because it's either Liberty goes on to face Akron, Arizona, or Oregon goes on to face the winner of the same matchup. But I'm going to take the safe pick here. I'm going to go Oregon. Now, when it comes to Arizona-Akron, I'm picking Akron. And here's my reasoning.
That's interesting.
Akron has arguably the best three-pointing shooting core in this tournament, in my opinion. Of course, we saw them play here at First National Bank Arena. They're a MAC champion for a reason, two-time MAC champion, back-to-back, baby. And I just think right now, the way it stands, Akron has a lot to prove. And, again, Akron's a team that not a lot of people talk about. Heck, Akron's out of town a lot of people talk about unless they're talking about LeBron James.
Of course.
So I just think Akron has a lot of firepower to beat Akron. Or not Akron, but Akron beating Akron, but beating Arizona. VCU versus BYU. Somebody once told me this. You never bet against the Mormons. I'm taking BYU here.
Of course.
Wisconsin and Montana. Okay, hear me out here. I'm just kidding. I'm
never pick a Montana team in this. That's a rookie mistake.
Again, St. Mary's, Vanderbilt, like you said, Vanderbilt frauds, half the SEC frauds in this year. But again, Alabama, Robert Morris. Alabama's going to win this one, but I think Robert Morris will keep it close.
I think that's reasonable to say.
They're coming out of a tough league in I think they're Horizon League, aren't they?
Yeah, that sounds right.
So I mean, they had to play Youngstown, and they had to play some really good teams, Purdue, Fort Wayne. They played a good league, and they all had 8 losses. So I think Robert Morris is a really good team. I just don't think they've got what it takes to beat Alabama in that one. I do like your Baylor take, though, because I think Mississippi State are probably the biggest frauds in the SEC. I think Josh Hubbard is a legitimate good player. I've seen him play live, and he was the only good player on that team that I saw. Missouri, I've watched him play Missouri live. Missouri wiped the floor with them in Starksville, too. So that's not a good team. They shouldn't really be in it. But
watch out for Baylor.
Yeah, Baylor's got VJ Edgecombe and Norchad Amir. It's wraps, I think, for Mississippi State.
So moving forward to the next region now, of course, this is the region where Houston gets the #1 overall seed. They're facing SIU Edwardsville, and then, of course, you got Gonzaga, Georgia, Clemson, McNeese, Purdue, High Point. Illinois will play a winner of a playing game. Kentucky, Troy, UCLA, Utah State, Tennessee, and Wofford. So, guys, what do you see about this one that you like and what you don't like?
This one's a mess for me.
Yeah.
This one is a absolute bloodbath. First off, I don't have Houston winning this.
Ooh.
Okay. Me neither.
First off, Houston, I think, is snake bit in this tournament. We look at historically. I mean, how do you have Clyde the Glide and Hakeem on the same team and win no championships in this tournament at all? You have them for 3 years, and you don't win anything with that. So first off, I don't think they're it, but I do have them making the Sweet 16. What I have for this one is possibly the most insane bracket picks I've ever made in my life. However, they are backed up by a lot of stats. So first off, I have High Point winning this entire region. And here's why.
It's
March.
High Point
is
March.
March.
That's the reason
It's March.
right
They would be the first 13 seed to ever win their region. But High Point is incredibly hot. We saw them play at the CBI last year. They were incredible. We hung with them somehow by an act of God. We hung with them because this team is incredibly efficient from the three. They're incredibly efficient in scoring in general. They blew away the entirety of the Big South, and the Big South is not like a little weak mid-major. There's some pretty good teams out of the Big South. I think you got UNC Asheville, you got UNC Greensboro, you got a bunch of teams like that, a bunch of the North Carolina teams that are pretty good at a lot of sports. But High Point is just far and away better than all of them. That's really saying something. But I've also got McNeese beating Clemson, and that would probably be the biggest upset, I think, because I think Clemson is really, really good. I could be very wrong about that because Clemson is a very good team. I got McNeese. McNeese has a lot of swagger. Will Wade's the head coach. Will Wade's a very good head coach. He's probably going to leave this year, but that team's got a lot of swagger. They're, again, incredible at scoring. They're an incredible team defensively as well. Dominated the Southland. I think they beat Clemson. I think High Point beats Purdue, which, by the way, I don't think Purdue losing in the first round is an upset pick anymore.
No.
Last year was unusual in the fact that they actually didn't lose in an early round upset. But I mean, if you got a team that'll lose to Farley Dickinson, whose head coach just got fired from Iona, like how did you just lose to that? And then you've also got Purdue losing to Little Rock way earlier on in the season. You got them losing to them. You got them losing to not Furman. They lost to somebody else early too, and it goes on and on with Purdue. But I don't think that's out of the question. High Point's run would be somewhat hindered by Houston. They will run into Houston, I think, in the Sweet 16. The NCAA has Houston favored, but it is not by much. The margin is incredibly close on paper in terms of these teams matching up. And so I like High Point to win that one. And then who I've also got making a run is Utah State.
Okay.
And they've been hot. They've been hot for much of the year. Mountain West is a good league. It's a very tightly contested league. It's a little notorious for losing early in March, but I do have Utah State going on a bit of a run. I think Kentucky are frauds. Kentucky has not won the games I think they needed to win in order to convince me that they'll go on a run here. And so I think Kentucky loses early on. I believe that's a first-round loss for them. Is it not? No, it's not. That would be an Elite Eight. That would be a Sweet 16 loss for them. I've got Utah State beating Tennessee and Kentucky on their way to it, but eventually losing to High Point. High Point goes to the Final Four. Again, insane takes for this, but High Point is in the Final Four for me for this round.
Unlike Will, I like the chalk here. Give me Houston coming out of this, but Gonzaga, they're very underrated coming into this. Very talented team. That second round matchup, Houston, Gonzaga, that could be a little bit of an upset there, maybe possibly. Clemson, I love Clemson in this tournament. I think they're a great team. I think they're going to do all the right things. Clemson's not getting upset by McNeese this year. I'm sorry. And here's the thing about upsets. I love upsets, but I have to be realistic about the upsets. It's kind of like Yale last year. They upset a team last year. I don't give them 2 upsets in a row. I just can't do it. I think Texas A&M, I know it's a different region, but I think they take care of business. Troy, I love Sun Belt, but give me Kentucky. I think there's too much firepower there. Kentucky's going to run that. My only upset here is Utah State. I think Utah State has what it takes to beat UCLA, and I think they do. But then Tennessee, they run into Tennessee. My sleeper pick here is Illinois. Illinois could quite possibly be the best team in the country if they're playing the way they should be playing. Illinois has the talent. They have what it takes to win. Give me Illinois, Houston, Elite Eight, and then Houston, obviously. I think Houston has too much. I know they always choke at some point in the season, but I think Houston's defense is really good. I think they have probably the 3rd best coach in this bracket. Give me Houston in the Final Four.
Right. So, again, brackets are made to be busted.
Yes.
Just like records made to be broken, brackets are made to be busted. And I'm just going to go on a game-by-game here. I think Houston takes it over SIU, Edwardsville, Gonzaga over Georgia, McNeese over Clemson. I'm not sold on Clemson. I think Will Wade is arguably one of the best coaches in college basketball right now. And the biggest mistake LSU has ever done was letting him go. I will never forgive LSU for letting him go. I mean, Will Wade, LSU's basketball program has been iffy over the course of the number of years. I mean, Shaq was there, Ben Simmons was there.
Pistol Pete
was there. Pistol Pete, greatest college basketball ever. But I don't know. I'm not sold on Clemson. So give me McNeese. I like the High Point over Purdue pick. Unfortunately, I don't think Purdue's going to ruin their resume right just yet. Now, next year, we may be having a different conversation in a different location because I won't be on campus no more. But give me Purdue. Illinois, of course, they're going to win their first-round matchup. I hate Troy, so give me Kentucky. UCLA over Utah State. I'm going to pick the safe pick and go UCLA. I like Tennessee over Wofford. And then Gonzaga over Houston, of course. I think McNeese will not beat Purdue. I think that's where their Cinderella run will come to the end. So you got them going to the Sweet 16. And then I think, arguably, again, Gonzaga being a blue blood that they are, they're going to go to, I believe that would be the Elite Eight at that point. And then on the other side, I got Tennessee going to the Elite Eight. Overall, who's coming out of this side of the bracket with a win? I think it's Tennessee. Give me Rocky Top. I don't know. I just got a feeling that it's time for the Volunteers to win one. And, of course, I think it's going to be this year. I don't think they're going to win the national championship, but I think they will make a great run, and they'll possibly be a runner-up this year. What was you going to say?
We could probably talk about how many frauds there are in this bracket, too, because Georgia has no business in this. Kentucky does not need to be seeded as high as they are, purely off of
Arkansas.
Yeah, I mean Arkansas.
Well, we'll get to Arkansas. We'll get to Arkansas.
We're getting there, but Georgia's probably the biggest fraud in this. Georgia was not a good team this year. They didn't play anybody in the non-conference. All these SEC teams just farmed some really nobody non-conferences, some little D2 colleges that, they weren't good. There's none of the teams they played in non-conference are even in this tournament. They didn't beat anybody good. There's maybe one or two teams that played outside of Auburn and Alabama, of course, that played like actual good non-conference, and they lost to them. Like you had Ole Miss earlier. We talked about Ole Miss earlier. Ole Miss, their only quality game in the non-conference was against Purdue, and they got smacked. Like again, these teams aren't good, but they're getting hyped up because they played easy non-conference. So I'm not trusting an SEC team at all.
Well, Ole Miss also lost to Memphis this year as well.
Right, and we beat Memphis,
Yeah.
and we're a good team, but Ole Miss is not going to sit there and say they're not as good as us, but yet they lost to
And
Memphis.
to branch off on that, I was on a podcast with some of my committee friends, and I think a topic that's going to be talked about a lot coming out of this bracket is either the SEC hype from the sports media was correct, and they had 14 record-breaking. I don't agree with that. It was the Big East a couple years ago, a while ago, but I think the SEC is going to be properly rated after this, and they're going to take it away from here on out. Or there's going to be a lot of teams that lose first round, second round maybe, and you maybe have like 3 teams that are left by third weekend.
Right.
So it's like I think it's either the SEC's hype is going to get taken down, or it's going to it's over and it's going to get ramped up.
You think they would have learned from last year because there's
Yeah,
only
and they
like
had a
2
lot of
SEC teams
yeah.
that made it to the second round.
Right.
And
Well,
there was like 8.
Speaking of the SEC, we got at least 3 in this next region. Where Florida is the number 1 seed, taking on Norfolk State, UConn, Oklahoma, Memphis, Colorado State, Maryland, Grand Canyon, Missouri, Drake, Texas Tech, UNC, Wilmington, Kansas, Arkansas, and St. John's, Omaha.
Coaching.
The coaching is stacked.
It's wild.
It's stacked in this bracket.
Arkansas, you got Coach Cal.
KU's got
John's.
Self.
Yeah, it's
St. John's
wild.
got Patino.
Just in that
Memphis
lower.
has Penny Hardaway.
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, if you look at coaching, and that's why I think it's going to come down to coaching in this region. Florida, obviously, probably you could say the hottest team in the country right now, winning the SEC. They're good, but we're forgetting about UConn. Didn't they just win back-to-back? Exactly, back-to-back champions, and they're an A seed. They're an A seed. I have them going all the way. I have them going all the way to the Elite 8, Sweet 16 maybe. And you still have Texas Tech in here, Maryland. I mean, there is so much talent in this region. I think this is the most talented region, the West, the Wild West. That's what I'm going to call this. It's going to be wild. Let's just say that.
I like this take a lot. I have St. John's winning this.
Same.
St. John's has the number 1 defense in the country. If they're not number 1, they are very close to it.
Number 1, yeah.
Their offense, I know their offense is like 66th in the country. It's shaky. Rick Pitino himself has been a little down on their especially their 3-point offense. But they're efficient in the paint. They're efficient in getting the twos. They get the buckets that they need to get. I like Florida a lot in this. Florida is a real team. Florida is one of the few SEC teams that is legitimately here for a reason. I have Florida going on an Elite 8 run, but St. John's beating them in a bit of an upset. There's several teams here. I've got mostly chalk in this. I've got Maryland going on a little bit of a run too, and that is kind of chalk. I'm very high on Derek Queen from Maryland. He's one of the best bigs in the country. And Maryland is really building it back. This is a team that has championship experience. You talk about 2002, when I was born. They won the national championship. This is a team that has been there before. They've won the big games. They have a tradition. This is a team that can go deep. I don't have them beating Florida. I don't think they're that good, but I think they've got plenty of quality wins in there. I think they've proven themselves. Another team I'm not too high on is Mizzou, and I could be very wrong about that because Mizzou is a very good 3-point shooter, and they're a very good defense. If St. John's is 1, Mizzou is not far behind because Mizzou is very physical. I especially like Caleb Grill out of Mizzou. He's an excellent 3-point shooter. He's got the style that makes me think that he could be a March Madness guy. He's just one of those dudes that'll hang 30 on your team any opportunity he gets. And I've seen him shoot from half court effortlessly. I've witnessed it. It was incredible. He's an incredible shooter. I still have him losing early to Texas Tech though. I think Texas Tech goes on a run. They have one of the highest rated offenses in the country. But ultimately, St. John's, I think, takes this. Pitino's been there before. He knows how to win. He knows how to build a team. And St. John's is just completely revolutionized right now. So.
Right. And look, and here's the thing I will say about this. Yes, it is the Wild West, as you mentioned, but there's so many games in this side of the bracket that you can't go wrong. Either team you pick. I mean, just for example, you're looking at the Kansas-Arkansas game.
Yeah.
Arkansas, yes, they did not have the year one of Coach Calipari that a lot of the boosters and a lot of the fans all around the state thought they were going to have.
Right.
But they still made the big dance. And that ultimately is what matters, is making the big dance. Another game, UConn-Oklahoma. UConn, blue blood. They've made championships. They know what it takes to win. But now you got Oklahoma in the first year in the SEC. They're looking to make their mark, and they're looking to make it now. Of course, Florida, they got on their run in the SEC tournament. Missouri, as you already mentioned. But what I think it's going to come down to is, of course, we've talked about coaching, but it's going to come down to what team can get hot at the right time. Florida, they're hot right now. Memphis, they're hot right now. UConn, they're possibly hot right now. Back-to-back. Arkansas, they're ice cold right now. St. John's, they're hot right now. Sorry, I absolutely hate the University of Arkansas, and I will use every fiber of my being to dog them. But I just think that when you're looking at this, a lot of people, a lot of media, and a lot of fans who partake in this festivities that we call March Madness brackets is going to ask themselves, who do I want to see host that championship trophy come the championship game? Because this side of the bracket is arguably the SEC side of the bracket, because I think this side has the most SEC members up in this year's tournament. So what I will say is this. I will raise the St. John's winning it all on this side of the bracket. I will raise that. But what I will say is do not count out Florida, Memphis, Missouri, or Texas Tech.
Yep.
Yes, you can only have one winner, but
any one of those teams could.
Any one of those teams can win. And here's, I guess, my hot take of this side of the bracket. Don't be surprised if Grand Canyon upsets Maryland.
Ooh, that's a huge.
Don't be surprised if it happens, because if they do that, they would go on to face the winner of the Memphis-Colorado State game. I think right now, as it stands today, I think Memphis can hang with UConn. I really do. Do I think they can hang with Florida? God, no. I don't think anybody in this side of the bracket can hang with Florida other than St. John's because of that defense and because of two words, Rick Pitino.
Rick Pitino.
And arguably,
Godfather.
and I'm just going to say this too, Rick Pitino may be the best coach in this side of the bracket. I'm sorry, but Coach Cal, look, yeah, he did a lot of great things at Kentucky, but, his resume precedes him. I mean,
Bill Self in Kansas.
Yeah. I mean, resumes precede him. But what I will say is this: if Rick Pitino takes a St. John's team to the Final Four or the Elite Eight, there's not going to be a doubt in anybody's mind of his legacy and that he will be a first ballot Hall of Famer once he retires.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no doubt about that, because this is the same man that coached at Iona for the love of the game. I mean, legitimately coached at Iona for the love of the game.
Took him to the March Madness for fun.
Yeah, I mean,
He was
literally.
just there for fun.
Literally. So, and look, you got a lot of connections to Arkansas State here in this bracket, just to kind of orient the show back to the Arkansas State, because this is Red Wolf Roundtable. But I just think, looking at this, yes, Florida is the safe pick. St. John's is also a safe pick. But if I had to pick an upset in this side of the region, I'm going Grand Canyon over Maryland.
Absolutely.
I like that.
I think Grand Canyon has definitely got something to prove, especially because last year I think their conference was pretty weak.
Yeah.
They play out in the WAC. This year their conference is pretty good. Utah Valley was a very good team this year. Utah Valley has plenty of experience in tournament play. They've been to the NIT Final Fours. I think they've won a CBI. They've done very well for themselves in postseason. Just haven't quite made the big dance yet. And you've also got some very experienced teams like Cal Baptist, who was pretty good this year, very good record. And then you've also got UT Arlington, who, the Arkansas State did beat, but UT Arlington really turned it around after that game. And I think they were a 4th seed in that conference. And Grand Canyon just swept over all of them. Utah Valley was the only one that gave them any fight. But I think that was a decent conference this year. And so I think they've got a little more experience, a little more stiffness of competition. And so going into this, I think that's a good take, is that Grand Canyon would be the team to look out for. I personally don't have them winning their first round game.
Right, no, yeah.
But that's just because I've been picking so many upsets.
Yeah.
It could definitely happen. Anything could happen. It's March.
Right. So real quick before we send it and say our goodbyes, national champion, who wins and what's the score?
I've said at the beginning of the year, after I saw these teams, Auburn versus Duke, I just don't think there's two teams better. I think Duke wins it. I think Flag will be healthy. Again, they've got the first round scratch against probably American, if I had to guess. And so they'll be able to coast through that. And then he'll be healthy for the tournament run. They make a run, Duke wins it finally after a while.
Right.
It's been a little while, but I think that's your championship. I've got 93-90, high shooting game. And that's my final score.
Final four, I got Michigan State, Texas Tech. I got Texas Tech winning that game, and then Duke, Houston. I got Houston winning that game. I got Texas Tech over Houston, 67-63. Two really good defenses. I think it's a defensive game, low scoring, hard to score type game. Give me Texas Tech from the state of Texas.
Right. Well, and again, look, here's the thing about March Madness. Just because you win the March Madness champion or the NCAA tournament, it's become such an aura. I almost said the March Madness championship, but the NCAA tournament has become this grand spectacle. It's almost like the Super Bowl, the World Series, WrestleMania, the big UFC main event fight. I will say this. While I'm not going to give you a Final Four, I will say this. Don't be surprised if Baylor makes it. Do not be surprised if Baylor makes it. And I'm not saying they're going to win because I think right now Auburn's probably the best team to win right now. Cooper Flagg's already a guaranteed NBA draft pick. Let's just be honest, he is. Yeah. But you don't have a spectacle for the draft of the NBA like you do the NFL, for example. So for that reason, I think Duke once again falls short. Don't be surprised if Baylor's up there. But overall, I'm taking Auburn. I'm taking them over Baylor. Give me the Auburn Tigers 84-76. So
you have Baylor in your championship?
I like that. Okay. I like that Baylor pick a lot, actually. I think they could really – I think it's possible. Like, if you look at that Duke path, I think it's possible.
They got some great players in there. They got a top 5 draft pick in VJ Edgecombe. I mean, it's possible.
And, again, before we leave, women, who you got winning all?
USC. I think Juju Watkins and Kiki Iriefin are fantastic. Iriefin's shooting 50%. She's fantastic, 18.2 points a game, 8.3 rebounds a game. She's fantastic. Juju Watkins, there's nobody else like her right now. She's, again, 24 points a game. She's fantastic. And playing in the Big Ten, dominating the Big Ten, except for the Big Ten championship for some reason. Couldn't quite pull it out, but they've beaten UCLA twice. I trust them against UCLA. And so I've got USC winning it.
You already know who I got. I got my Notre Dame Fighting Irish. I think they have the best backcourt possibly in NCAA.
Pick
Olivia
complete
Miles.
opposites.
I mean, I think give me the Irish over those talented, very talented teams. Should be a great tournament.
Right. Again, same here. I like not the same here with the Notre Dame pick, but there's a lot of talented teams in the tournament. But I will say this: if UConn wins against Arkansas State, I think UConn's probably going to go with the championship. But if I had to pick a team that was not playing Arkansas State, just so I could say that Arkansas State played the national champion, I'm going to say Tennessee. I mean, again, I've been not a big Tennessee fan, but I've been a supporter of Tennessee athletics for a good minute now, basketball and football. My grandmother, my uncle, Tennessee fans. I grew up around them. So, but I will say, as a hot take, one more time before we leave, this women's field right here that we have this year possibly is the field that puts women's collegiate basketball on the map, more than it already has. And I'm not saying just because of a superstar standpoint. I'm saying from an overall team game standpoint. But, again, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Cooper, love you. I miss you. Mr. Sullivan, I love you and I miss you. Hope you, Mr. Reese, have a fun time at East. Hope to see you guys soon. We're going to go to spring break next week, so we won't have a show when we come back. Cooper and I will be here to kind of wrap the semester up. It'll be our final semester here on Red Wolf Roundtable, so you never know who's going to take it over. Maybe one of these two clowns. Who knows? I don't know. But thank you guys so much for watching the Red Wolf Roundtable, the March Madness special for 2024-2025.